to introduce them to you once again this morning. We have Dr. Steve Steele. Thank you so much for joining us. And Larry Sykes. Larry's been here a million times. You certainly know Larry. These guys know each other quite well. They have shared the same journey quite often as members of school board, and we're happy to have you here and talk about how you both think things can be done differently should you be elected and you re-elected to City Council. Let's take a look at some resumes. Who's first? I think we have Dr. Steele. He was appointed a member at large in 2009. That must be to Toledo City Council. He was a Toledo Board of Education member from 2005 to 2006. Is that right?
Well, 9, and I was president 07 through 09.
Yeah, president from 07 through 09. You know, let's suffice it to say that he was on school board for quite a while, president there for a while, went to City Council, and have been at City Council since 2009.
Correct.
Okay. Your focus on council has been balancing the city budget, growth of small businesses, neighborhood and safety issues, and domestic violence, which I think is really interesting. I think Joe McNamara also talked about having a focus on domestic violence. I'd like to talk to you about that just a little more. Here's Larry Sykes. Those of you who have been around, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Mr. Sykes is a 14-year member of the Toledo Public School Board, a former vice president at Fifth Third Bank, president and CEO of LJSJB and Associates, focus on management consulting, health, fitness, wellness. Longtime community activist. His foci tends to be public education. Obviously, he's been on the school board for quite a long time. Again, health and fitness, developing and sustaining strong neighborhoods, and fiscal accountability. I would also say that that Dr. Steele also shares a focus on fiscal accountability. Okay, we got it out there. That was really just for folks who might be new to this particular city. Everybody knows you guys. So. Since everybody knows you, everybody's expecting an awful lot from you. You are not novices to this arena. Let's just get to it. What is wrong, in a nutshell, with the way the city is being managed, Dr. Steele?
Well, you know, I think in a lot of cases it has to do with a top-down management style that we currently have in the current administration, as opposed to listening to voices from the grassroots and thinking about things from the grassroots. As an example, we talk about neighborhoods. You know, we get money from the federal government to help develop neighborhoods. It's called CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant money. That share has been dwindling, but the amount of money that the administration takes for the people in the administration has remained pretty static, while the amount of money that actually goes to the neighborhoods and to the neighborhood groups, to the community development corporations out in the neighborhoods, has been dwindling dramatically. So rather than put the money out with the people that are actually in the neighborhoods doing the development on the ground, we're keeping it in one government center, and I just don't think that's right.
Do you think, though, that the neighborhoods, Larry, I know that you've been interested in revitalizing these neighborhoods. You were just recently covered for your concerns about Greenbelt Parkway. I know that this is a strong focus of yours. Do you think the neighborhoods actually, though, have the expertise to make the changes that are needed, or should the city be driving that effort? I mean, there are some neighborhoods that don't have that's right, that don't have a CDC, and those are primarily minority neighborhoods at this particular point. There is not a viable CDC in many minority neighborhoods.
If I may, Dr. Steele, what I would recommend and have recommended in past years is that the city work very closely with the Lucas Metropolitan Housing Authority, who has 3,600 units throughout the city and another 3,000 Section 8.
And you were on that board.
Yes,
people
ma'am,
should
for
know.
9 years. For the purpose of renovating homes, LMHA is the leader and has the ability to do that. Not only can they do that, but it could be a job training program for our youth and those individuals that have been misplaced. LMHA has the ability and has the technology to renovate homes. It would be in their best advantage. It would be in their best advantage to do that, because they have properties all through the city.
That's true. That is one of the city's best kept secrets.
They could
actually
match that money and extend that program and renovating homes. And the individuals that help and put sweat in there, like Habitat, they could get that home they could get a trade and a skill and become productive citizens. Not that they're not, but I would give it to Lucas Metropolitan
I think
Housing.
it has to do with building capacity. I mean, I think that's the role of the city. You know, the role of the city is not to tell neighborhoods what they need, but to help build capacity within the neighborhoods.
And to join with organizations like LMHA, who is run by, we need to say this, the amazing Lenny Willis, has been over there for a long time, does a great job, really proud of Lenny. And why don't we have these kind of connections? I mean, you're exactly right. It would make so much more sense in terms of the way we manage our resources if the city partnered with organizations like Lenny, and I do like LMHA that Lenny runs, and I do see a little bit of that happening. LMHA intervened in that brownstone, the issue with the brownstones on Dorr Street that were built, that are lovely, but just were not selling. Just what I saw. So why isn't that happening, Steve? You're down there.
Yeah, right. You know, it is happening in some areas, as you say. I mean, in economic development, for example, the city is partnering with you know, the Regional Growth Partnership, with the Port Authority, et cetera. So there are areas where it's happening. You know, unfortunately, I think there's too much turf battle, you know, that goes on, and too much, you know, protecting, you know, the resources that come in, and et cetera, instead of thinking creatively. And I think that's what I mean by the top-down management style. I think we need to be, you know, across the board, thinking not about who's getting credit or who's getting the resources, but think about who's being served.
Yeah.
And if it's about service, it will happen.
Yeah, and you know what happens though with these turf battles is that the people who struggle the most are Latinos, African Americans, poor women, single parents, single moms had a household.
Who are not being listened to.
Who are not being listened to, absolutely. Got to change. How would you guys change it? You talk about partnering with LMHA, what would you do?
You know, again, there are other types of partners. You know, if you know, staying with the neighborhood focus, there's you know, CDCs that exist and that are building capacity. There's CDCs who have existed, but the city didn't properly help them build capacity. There are organizations like the Neighborhood Health Service, you know, which you're very familiar with, that I know Southern Public Schools has partnered with to an extent, but I don't know that the city adequately focuses on the health of folks who you know, need it the most, the minority, the single women, like you're saying. I mean, all those kinds of partnerships. That's where the city would be getting the biggest bang for their buck and helping to, you know, increase, as Larry said, you know, getting a doubling effect of the resources that are put in.
Larry, the impact of not doing this is pretty significant. What would you do when you got there?
I would, and as I have spoken with the mayor, I would speak, and I've spoken with some of the council people. Our people are out there suffering because we can't make a decision, and the decision is right there. Call everybody together and say, this is the direction that we want to go in. You got all those homes that are across from the Lucas Metropolitan Housing Authority sitting empty and just deteriorating. We need to address that, clean up the neighborhood. When we talk about territorial, we can sit up and fight, but we come and go as elected officials. Our community stays here,
Absolutely.
it's here, and we need to sustain. If you can't give something back, then you need to get out of the way. That's what we're here about, to make those that we pledge, if they're elected, this is what we will do, then let's do it. Come with the plan. And those are...
Come with a plan. Come with a plan. You are absolutely right. Come with a plan. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, ma'am.
All right. Come with a
It's your
plan.
show.
Come with a plan. But let me tell you what I hear out and about. I hear that people are tired of this kind of discussion. That at election time, folks show up and they say, "Vote for me. I'm going to make a difference. You know, we need jobs." You know what? This country's been talking about needing jobs since 1950. You know, we need something to be different, but things don't seem to change. No, you know, not at all meaning to reflect on our current mayor, but things seem not to change, or that's the perception. So how will you all go about the business of having people have faith in government? There is very little faith in government right now.
True, and look, when you look at my history, this has been my goal. I've served 14 years on the school board, 9 years on the housing authority, 14 years on the Metro Park. I'm not one to run and go here and there. I'm there for the long haul until I've achieved the goals that I say I'm going to achieve when I come in. One of the things I'm looking at, and I've shared that, is the crime and how we address the crime. And I'm going to come out next week with a way to address crime in our area. Housing, I have a proven record, and working with other individuals, and I go back to LMHA, which was some time ago. When I was asked to go on that board, that housing authority was one of the worst in the nation. In less than 5 years, we put crime programs in that addressed the crime, cleaned up the neighborhoods, cleaned up the housing, made the people believe. The people have to believe you don't want to work with you. They became the eyes and ears. We got rid of the crime. We got money for programs in the public housing. The President of the United States, Bill Clinton, came in and said, if you want to look at how public housing run, look at LMHA. We can do that again with the city. You know, and talk about economic development. Let me just share this with you. And people criticize the mayor for his relationships with China, but several years ago, you remember when we had a team to go to China and bring back giant pandas at the zoo? Here again, we got an opportunity to work with the zoo, work with the mayor, work with China. If we brought back some giant pandas, do you know the impact on the economic for the hotel, for the restaurants, and for this community as a whole? Those are the connections that we need to use, the relationships that sometimes we don't see the forest for looking at one tree.
Well,
that would be a great relationship, I mean, that would pump this economy up and create other jobs.
Well, do you agree that with Larry? I think that's a really interesting approach. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, and it is fundamentally, as Larry said, it's fundamentally all about developing relationships. I mean, I think everything we've talked about so far, right, is about having appropriate relationships in appropriate service. You know, when it comes to obviously we both have served on the Board of Education. When it comes to, you know, things like crime, things like neighborhood development, I think a lot of what we're talking about is opportunities for young people.
You're absolutely right.
And you know, it isn't the city's role to develop opportunities for young people. It's the city's role to help support the opportunities that are out there.
Absolutely. Listen, we're going to go to break, but I want you to think about this. One of the candidates has said that she has basically said that there's not a need right now for global strategy when it comes to economic development, and that's Anita Lopez. She said that at the NAACP debate a few weeks ago. Not that there would never be, but right now she said we need to pay attention to home first, okay? Think about that. I want to hear what your reaction is. And then I want to talk about crime and gangs when we come back. I'll see you on the other side of this break. We'll be right back.